Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Military Wire. This is going to be part two of a three-part series with retired Command Master Chief Navy SEAL Steve Giblin. In this episode, we're actually going to unpack how you can tap Navy SEAL resilience and find, I'm going to say, peace, maybe even some inner peace in this episode. So welcome to this edition of the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. I am, in fact, Mike Schindler, and this is a podcast where we interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country in hopes that you can get something that you can apply to your own life and move forward. So, again, as I mentioned, this is part two of a three-part series, and he's going to share in this series chapter one of his book, Walking in Mud, his latest book, Walking in Mud, on what he learned from his 26 years in the Navy, 24 years with the SEALs, that will help you build resilience and find peace. So, Command Master Chief Steve Giblin, welcome to the Military Wire.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love having you because I think, for those who have watched part one, understanding what you learned in BUDS and how that you can apply that training into your own life, I think that's so powerful. Here, the big issue today is resilience. People are talking a lot about resilience, right? Going through a pandemic, coming out the other side of this. In chapter one, you tackle the issue of PTSD. And so we want our audience to understand what exactly is PTSD? What does that mean? Is it only relevant to those who serve in the military? A resource that you found that absolutely saved your life. You mentioned that in the book, and I want you to bring that up too, because it helped you through a dark time in your life. And really what people need to do to build resilience. I think that's going to be pretty important in this. So you open this book, Walking in Mud, chapter one, with post-traumatic stress disorder, an epidemic in its own right. So if you could just tell us, what exactly is PTSD and what triggers it?
PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which, by the way, I hate the last part of that disorder because it makes it almost makes it sound like anybody that's got it is a basket case, which they are not. Millions of people have this just within the United States. Anything can cause it. A car accident, a traumatic event in your life, things like that, a dangerous event, a near-death experience. And there you go, you have it. And you may not realize you have it until all of a sudden you have something that triggers a reaction. And
so it could be upbringing, it could be an abusive relationship.
It could be so much.
It could be so much. So it's just not limited to those who serve in the military.
No, not at all. And I think a lot of people, they stigmatize military veterans with, oh, they got to have PTSD, they're half off the rock or they're half nuts or whatever. Firefighters get it. Policemen get it. EMTs get it. And like I said earlier, people that have been involved in just one car accident, you could have it. And, then it just takes a trigger that then starts this, it's just, a cascade of more emotions, more event, things that happen. And next thing you know, it just feels like you're on a mudslide screaming towards the bottom.
Yeah.
My particular diagnosis of PTSD didn't come until almost a decade after I retired. During my career, I was knocked unconscious 3 separate times. 2 of them were from bad parachute landings, and a third was from a rappelling accident, all of them while we were training. And but at the time, the military didn't have a protocol really for traumatic brain injury or being knocked unconscious. I kid you not, after my 2 unconscious events that were for less than 5 minutes from my parachuting accidents, I actually went back up and jumped a couple more times. And but it's just like, hey, I saw a couple of stars, whatever. The one where I was knocked out for almost an hour, that was a rappelling accident. And but that was also where I broke my back. And that's sort of out overshadowed me being knocked unconscious, apparently. And again, the military didn't have a protocol for somebody that has been knocked unconscious. All they really cared about was, did he break anything? So I didn't realize until 2008, 2009, that that was when I first learned about what hypervigilance was. and hypervigilance, kind of just on edge, and residing in condition yellow, condition orange, right, on the Cooper scale. And it's just always on alert, always hyped up, and always, just watching out for bad things to happen. And it's exhausting. It is exhausting. I had a particular situation that came up. I wrote about it in my book, where this young man and three girls from a rival high school, rival to Coronado, where I was living at the time, they were just acting like complete fools and jerks. And I literally stepped into what I would call condition black, and started handling the situation in the only way that I knew how to handle the situation. And it did not end well. And but these are the things that happen. And it's my wife. She didn't freak out. She didn't, oh my God, you're unhinged or anything like that. And she basically said, hey, we need to get some help. So we sort of dismissed it. We talked about it. We dismissed it and everything. And then it was another 10 years later that I had this cascading event. A near car accident resulted in me I was unsettled for the entire day, into the night. And I was exhausted the next day when I was done, just from almost T-boning another vehicle. I wasn't even driving, but yeah, anybody can get this. Anybody could have it. And it's not just veterans.
Yeah, so I think that's so important to note, because I do think that one of the major contributors to PTS, and I've heard some people call it post-traumatic growth as well. It's a growth opportunity. If you really learn how to deal with it, you can grow through it. But, car accidents, you mentioned car accidents, which, every American, every individual in this planet that drives is probably involved in a car accident at some point. And those who haven't, thank God you haven't been. But and you talk about something in episode 1, which I think is so important, is box breathing. When you begin to build that anxiety level up, is it true that one of the things that you can do to minimize the impact is to start to do that box breathing that you talk about?
100%. But what you as the individual need to understand that and it may not dawn on you to do that unless you practice it frequently.
Yeah.
And it's a practice, and I call it a practice because it's something that should be done every day. And when you come across a situation where your anxiety is starting to rise, you can automatically step into that box breathing. And it's in for 4 seconds through the nose, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and out for 4 seconds through the mouth. And it's slow, controlled, and it brings your heart rate down, and it makes you focus. You sort of hit a reset button. That is huge. That's important. And especially if you're prone to anxiety attacks or if you have PTSD.
That's so good. So you talk about resilience in your book. What does it mean to get resilience, and how do I get it? Is this something I can buy off of Amazon? I mean, people talk about resilience, right? They're like, you just got to be resilient. And people throw it around like it's something that, comes in my kit that, is issued to me. Like, okay, well, maybe I didn't get the resilience bucket.
Right.
So is it something only for those who serve in the SEALs? Is it something for those of us who only served in the military? What exactly is resilience, and how do I get it?
It's not a special operations thing. It's not anybody can have it, but again, it's a practice. It's it goes right alongside with mental toughness and grit and all those other terms that people kind of put into a bin as tough people having. Oh, he's so resilient, so he's chock full of grit. Anybody could build this up. It's the ability to recover from setbacks. And when I'm talking about setbacks, I mean, it's almost any kind of setback. It doesn't have to be catastrophic, a helicopter crash or being shot at or being shot or anything like that. It's a setback that you experience in your ability to adapt challenging circumstances. And it's required in order to thrive and flourish and be able to get through this and be able to, continue on with your life. And not just kind of crawl into a shell. It's a foundational psychological tool that empowers us to feel effective and capable of handling uncertainty. We were continuously inundated with these sort of drills and buds. And, I told you on the previous episode, we had a Master Chief at Buds that always used to tell us, hey, it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
I love that.
If you break that phrase down to anything that's occurring in your life, you can really, you think about it and you're like, wow, is that really worth, losing my mind over, right?
Yeah.
Or how am I gonna bounce back from this? And I understand, the last 2 years, through the course of this pandemic, people losing jobs, people losing their homes, their livelihoods, things resilience couldn't have come or even be discussed at a more appropriate time than now.
Yeah.
And, being able to reset and express gratitude or realize, gratitude for some of the most simple things that we have in life. Hopefully a roof over your head, hopefully a job that pays so you can put food in your belly.
Yeah.
And hopefully, a trusty sidekick, your partner in crime, your wife, your girlfriend, your spouse, your partner, they're next to you, and being grateful for what you have.
Yeah. Honor the moment. I heard somebody say, honor the moment you're in, right?
That's mindfulness. That's mindfulness. Yeah. And that's, being in the present.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is, we can throw it out there. What's the saying that we always hear too, you don't believe in God until you're in the foxhole, right? There's always a believer in the foxhole, sure. when you got things that are coming at you. But it's something when you go through it, and you're like, man, how am I going to get through it? I think it's so important to remember that resilience is built step by step, right? It's something that, okay, I just got to make it the next 10 seconds. What about the next 30? What about, and there's still practices I do to this day, even working out. Like, if I do a tough workout regimen, us guys over 50 now, the things that we used to be able to do in our 20s and 30s, not the same, right? And I'm thinking, right. How long do I have to do these burpees? Like, oh my gosh, I'll just one more if I do one more. So yeah. You talk about this condition red, you talk about this, even the condition black. You gave us an example of this. What does that mean when you're in these different conditions?
So this gentleman, Colonel Cooper, came up with this scale, his color code, if you will. He taught law enforcement for years after he retired from the Marine Corps, Korea and Vietnam vet, combat vet, and he super smart guy, and realized that human beings, we kind of go through different sort of phases, or he put color codes to them. And condition white is that person who's walking across the crosswalk looking at their smartphone, right? That's, their head is up, their second point of contact the entire time. That's condition white, you're just point blank, that's it. Then you've got, the various other conditions that, you're condition yellow, you're kind of, you're aware, you're situationally aware. Condition orange, you know that there are things that you need to be prepared for, you're coming down a road doing 55 miles an hour, and you're coming through an intersection, and you've got the right of way. So many people just blaze right on through these intersections without ever stepping across into condition orange and kind of looking both ways and being prepared to hit the brakes.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good example, I think. Condition red, unfortunately, so when you cross from condition orange into condition red, you're actively responding to a threat that now has you engaged. And whether it be combat or, like, I always love using the analogy of traffic, because people die in traffic every day. And, a lot of times it is life or death driving. And, if everybody drove around in condition yellow all day long, that'd be great. We wouldn't have the accidents that we have.
Yeah.
Right? But as soon as you're next to somebody on the I-5 and you're doing 85 in San Diego, just to keep up with traffic, and you look over and you see the person next to you on their phone, looking at their phone and not driving like they're supposed to, it scares me, right?
Yeah.
Condition black, it's a place in a fight or in combat where you're present in that engagement, but you are not present thinking. You're going through basic motor functions. And if you have any kind of appropriate training, a lot of people won't even remember events that took place during that time, that time slot in life. They're not remembering any of this. And it will usually take a witness to say, man, you were doing this, you did that, and then you did this. And that's condition black, where you don't recall, you have total lack of recall of what took place.
Yeah. What's interesting about that, Steve, my chief used to say, Mike, you're going to perform how you practice, right? So you better practice a lot, because in the midst of whatever happens, your body's going to take over. You're going to perform. So you better practice, keep practicing, right? Drill, practice, drill, rehearse. I don't know how many times I heard that. Practice, drill, rehearse, right? Over and over again. And I think to your point is, we need to be sure that, we understand what condition black is for us and how are we going to respond versus react, right, to different situations. I want to talk about this research, this resource. You said you went through a pretty dark moment, and I think this is pretty important in finding peace, that sometimes we can't do it on our own, that we have to reach out, and there's no shame in reaching out. I think that's really important. I tell people this to this day, my wife and I still meet with a therapist once a week. Okay, we still do it. I think it's so important, right, that you level set. Now, not every couple needs to do that. And we don't do that because we need to do that. We do that because we think it's healthy for us to do that, if that makes sense. But you talked about this dark moment that you went through, and you found a resource that was really helpful to you. What was that resource, Steve?
It was a veterans program called Home Base. It's very similar to Wounded Warrior and a lot of these other programs that are out there. I found myself in this dark hole, and my wife helped me climb out. I was given a list of these programs. I reached out to a former CO of mine, who then connected me to an individual that works within Special Operations Command. He's another retired SEAL Master Chief. And he said, hey, Steve, here's a list of places that then we could help you get to. And I just picked the place that I thought would be the most convenient that I could travel to without really any hassle, and without a major muscle movement of travel. And so I chose Boston, and I'm in Western New York. It was one day's travel, and in Boston is Home Base, and it was started by the Red Sox Foundation, and the SEAL Naval Special Warfare Foundation, SEAL Foundation. They picked up the tab for the treatment, and it was a total of 3 weeks. I went there for initial 1 week of intake, and it was getting poked and prodded and spoken to and speaking with, x-rays, CAT scans, MRIs, all of it, all the EIEIOs. And then I went back for 2 weeks, and as a member of a cohort, a group of other veterans. And it wasn't inpatient because they don't have a hospital. We stayed at a hotel right next to the facility, but the people that were there reminded me of special operations. They reminded me of a SEAL team. You've got your breachers who are experts at gaining entry into anything. You've got your snipers. You've got your guys that are the combat swimmer, the real combat swimmer experts, guys like that. This Home Base, they've got the neurologists, the psychologists, the sociologists, all these gists that they were fantastic, and they could put their finger on what is in fact, not working with you, but also how you can cope with it. It's not, hey, this is what's wrong, good luck, right? Here, let's throw some pills at you. Not at all. They gave you coping skills, and literally taught you over that 2 week period of how you can learn to deal with what your new normal is.
Oh, that's so cool. I want to move to this really quickly because I know we're running out of time on this, but what is the first thing I need to do to start building resilience and find peace? What do I need to do?
So research shows that one of the best ways to boost happiness, and it actually helps build resilience at the same time, is performing acts of kindness. I'm not talking about jumping out of your car and, helping an old lady across the street, which that would be great if people did that more often, but also volunteering, mentoring, expressing gratitude towards other people, just simple gratitude. The practice of gratitude is one of the most time-tested and proven methods for enhancing resilience, believe it or not. Looking at the bright side, has anybody ever seen the Monty Python movie, The Life of Brian, right?
Yeah, The Life of Brian.
Right. Looking at the bright side, they're all on the crucifix there. And one of the guys says, hey, let's look at the bright side. Taking responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
Okay. Not pointing the blame thrower in somebody else's direction, and taking responsibility for your own actions. And it goes right along with the truth, and the truth setting you free. Right. By blaming other people, you're essentially lying.
Yeah.
By taking responsibility for your own actions, you'd be surprised how well that actually makes you feel, and how relationships will unfold by you being able to do that.
I love that. I mean, it really starts with taking your eyes off yourself, right? I think that's the first piece is, take your eyes off yourself, being grateful, right? Honoring the moment. I think you talked about that too. And being truthful. I love that. So again, Steve, how can people follow you? Like you've got such wisdom in this book, Walking in Mud. If you haven't got it, pick it up. Be sure you pick it up. But how do people follow you and get more wisdom from you?
I've got a website, frogmanleadership.com, and that actually provides links to podcasts that I've been, fortunate enough to be a guest on. Also, I'm on Twitter at Giblin SP. I'm on LinkedIn, and also you can buy the book from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target, through the distributor, Simon & Schuster, and my publisher, Post Hill Press. And there's also an audiobook, audiobook.com, or audiobooks.com, I'm sorry. So there's an audio version narrated by yours truly.
I love it. Well, Steve, I just want to, again, thank you for being, again, this is part 2 of part 3. So if you haven't listened to part 1, be sure you listen to part 1. And be sure you pick up the book, Walking in Mud. It's such a great read. There's so much wisdom in this that we can apply to our lives. So thank you for just helping us on the resilience piece and helping us, get a little bit closer to finding peace. So again, Steve, thanks for being on the Military Wire.
Thank you, Mike. My pleasure.